Klutz, I was taken to a vision specialist at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. He quickly solved the mystery. I had a rare form of retinitis pigmentosa, an inherited disease of retinal degeneration, which had left me with 2400 vision. By the time I reached high school, I was fully blind, able to perceive only light. A surprise today does prepare us, I suppose, for the ones still in store. Coping with blindness must have made me more resilient. Or was I able to cope well because of my innate resilience? No matter how prepared we are, though, we can still have the wind knocked out of us. I was 13 when my father died. That morning, he dropped my mother off at work in Harlem and promised to see a doctor for the leg pain and breathing problems he'd been having. At the doctor's office, however, there was some confusion about his appointment time, and no one could see him right then. Frustrated by this, and already stressed for other reasons, he stormed out of the office and pounded the pavement until he collapsed in front of a bar. The bartender pulled him inside and called for an ambulance, and my father was eventually taken to the hospital, but he could not survive the multiple heart attacks he had suffered by the time he got there. This is not to say that our lives are shaped solely by random and unpleasant events, but they do seem, for better or worse, to move forward along largely unmapped terrain. To what extent can you direct your own life when you can see only so far, and the weather changes quicker than you can say, "Surprise"? Wait, I have still another story for you. And though it is mine, once again, I suspect that this time you will see your own in it too. In 1971, my parents emigrated from India to America. Like so many before them, when they landed on the shores of this new country and a new life, they sought the American dream. They soon found out that pursuing it entailed many hardships, but they persevered. I was born into the dream, and I think I understood it better than my parents did, for I was more fluent in American culture. In particular, I realized that the shining thing at its center, so bright you could see it even if you, like me, were blind, was choice. My parents had chosen to come to this country, but they had also chosen to hold on to as much of India as possible. They lived among other Sikhs, followed closely the tenets of their religion, and taught me the value of obedience. What to eat, where, study, and later on where to work and whom to marry, I was to allow these to be determined by the rules of Sikhism and by my family's wishes. But in public school, I learned that it was not only natural, but desirable that I should make my own decisions. It was not a matter of cultural background or personality or abilities. It was simply what was true and right. For a blind Sikh girl, otherwise subject to so many restrictions, this was a very powerful idea. I could have thought of my life as already written, which would have been more in line with my parents' views. Or I could have thought of it as a series of accidents beyond my control, which was one way to account for my blindness and my father's death. However, it seemed much more promising to think of it in terms of choice, in terms of what was still possible, and what I could make happen. Many of us have conceived and told our stories only in the language of choice. It is certainly the lingua franca of America, and its use has risen rapidly in much of the rest of the world. We are more likely to recognize one another's stories when we tell them in this language, and as I hope to show in this audiobook, speaking choice has many benefits. But I also hope to reveal other ways in which we live and tell our lives, form narratives that are more complex and nuanced than the crude alternatives of destiny and chance that I have presented here. The informal study of choice that I undertook as a child turned academic when I got to college. At the University of Pennsylvania, I studied different religious groups to find out how religion affects one's outlook on life. This research suggested that ideas about choice vary widely, that my experience as a Sikh and an American had exposed me to only a small set of them.